And good evening, America. Good afternoon, Australia. You're back on Radio Toni, and we have a show at the moment called Insight with Michelle Sleight. And for those of you listening on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, we have Payo waiting to respond to your comments and questions with website links. Don't forget, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe the channel. And if you want any information that you missed today, jump onto radiotoni.com and you will find Michelle's links and all of her information if you miss any of our live chat today. So we've been talking to the gorgeous Michelle, who is an empowered survivor, and she knows the difference between being empowered and just surviving. Michelle was the victim of 6 rapes and 1 sexual assault beginning at the age of 5. And she has experienced the persecution and the challenges from a permanent work-related injury that she had to work through. She's been stalked and felt powerless and has lost someone close to her due to domestic violence. Michelle now helps people to stop being at the mercy of their trauma and their triggers, and she is an advocate for change in sexual assault culture, and she has also authored a powerful story called Insight, Up Close and Personal Profile of Sexual Assault, for communities and individuals to better identify sexual predators and respond in a more resourceful way to the trauma of sexual assault. Michelle now helps her clients and people that come to her for help to permanently free themselves from trauma, triggers, and PTSD. So just a quick reminder that this show today touches on topics of a sensitive nature. Please reach out and talk to someone. I encourage you, particularly if you've been a victim of sexual assault, talk to someone who actually understands. And I can't recommend Michelle highly enough in terms of what she's walked through, what she's had to heal from, and the value of wisdom that she can give to help you through and get you to the other side. So this is our last show together, unfortunately, but we're going to quickly do a wrap of some of the things that we've discussed over the last 5 shows. Before we do that, though, last week we only touched briefly on the judicial system, and we really wanted to go stronger and more in depth into the judicial system. And I'm going to welcome Michelle and hand over to her because this is an important component of what we've been talking about. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Toni. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Last week we had a very rushed discussion about what I've got here in this book. And one of the sections that I have in here is on court. Now, I just didn't get a chance, I don't think, to say last time, this is not a memoir. I did not want to write a memoir. I wanted to write a resource. And so my story is one chapter, right? And so I think it's really important that people understand that I've created a safe space inside these pages for people
to take. It's an incredibly insightful resource book, isn't it, Michelle? You wrote it as a resource to help people.
I did. Every question that I've ever asked, every question that anyone has ever asked. We were just talking before the show, Toni, about the fact that trauma counselors and the people that we see as a first line, they can tell us what we might be experiencing, but they don't tell us that we need to grieve because we died.
Yes.
They don't tell us that.
Yes.
And they don't tell us that there's a process that we need to go through, that we're going to go through, not because we choose it, but
go through
that we go through, and with shock and different things. However, what's underlying that is the fact that something was taken from us, and that was our identity, and we've got to try and make sense of that and put that back together. And so many people sort of dive in, get back on the routine, and then they look back years later and just find a pathway that
nothing's working.
Nothing is, they have regret, and that's not okay. We don't want that anymore. Or, there's a whole range of things that can come out of it, unfortunately. So the book is a safe space with which you can learn, and it's written very simply, very simply.
Beautifully written.
It's not written for academics. It's written for everyday people.
Everyday people.
To be able to have the core insights that every one of us, the members of the survivor family, have asked. It's there for you. And one of those chapters is, of course, court, because that's one of the things that I find that everybody is confronted with whilst they are still in a state of shock. You have to get to medical attention because that's important for you, right?
It is.
Very important for you. And then you start getting asked questions. Do you want to go to court? Do you want to press charges? Are you going to be wanting to do this? Are you going to be wanting to do that? A lot of things when you're not really in a position to make decisions. Right? The last time round, I knew what I wanted and I was able to make sure I got what I wanted. In the past, I want what I wanted, I never got there with it for one reason or another. But the last time around, I was adamant. And what I talk about very strongly in the book and in my chapter on court, and it doesn't matter what legal system you're going through. Okay, so we all have different legal systems, you know, the US, Australia, wherever you're listening, yours might be different to ours. But the key thing that you have to really bear in mind is that it is a process. It is designed to test evidence, to make sure that a innocent person does not get locked up. At the same time, it is a process, if you use it right, where you can actually become very, very empowered. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand what that means. And I was lucky enough that the last time that I'd been raped, I had been through a process of change and resolving my past.
Yes.
And I had the mindset to enable me to actually learn a lot as I went through the process. But also, I was able to question and take control at times when other victims are not able to, and understand better what's actually happening, right? Because I've read on so many websites, I have heard from so many people that have said to me, you know, oh, he's out there, he was out there, he was dating again, he was this, he was that. You know, I can't even step outside my door and look at him.
Yes.
Never, ever take the focus off what is so absolutely a priority and absolutely the key important thing that you must focus on, and that is you. It doesn't matter what he's doing. That is not your responsibility. You are your responsibility. And taking care of you is absolutely empowering. I can't stress that enough. The minute you focus on him, you absolutely give away whatever you've got left, whatever he left behind is going to him. Please
don't let it go there.
Make it for you. Make it for you, right? It's all about you, looking after you. There's a judge, there's a jury. If you get to court, you know, they make decisions. Your job, my job, two things. One, to hold them accountable in terms of society. Number two, to use that process to actually become empowered. And so if you go into it in the right way with the right mindset and you actually understand the process and you're in a position,
that's a big thing, isn't it, Michelle?
You can make that work for you. Now here we have a long drawn out process where we do where you know, they get to go a number of times to court before they even have to plead. In fact, you don't even have to plead until you get to the day of trial and stand up and then say, okay, I'm pleading guilty or not guilty. And that can be 12, 14, 18
or
months.
18.
Easily, right? So that's a long time. Now you've got a choice. You can use it to focus on him, or you can use it
To get
to
ready and
empower
get
you
prepared and heal. Yep.
and to work on you, to work with someone like me whose real
Yep.
focus is to help you be empowered so that when you sit in that witness box, that you actually know where you have your time and you actually make it count, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Now Toni knows, and she will tell you this. It the verdict does not set you free.
It doesn't. Just quickly, Michelle, in our particular case, it took um, 18 months before it got first mentioned in court. It was another 6 months before it went. There was a number of mentions, and then it was set for a week-long trial. And right up until the day before, you don't know if he's going to plead guilty or not guilty. Most of them, from my experience, plead not guilty because they're encouraged to do that. It's not often that they want to save the victim and the victim's family and loved ones from a trial. And if they plead guilty, that's exactly what happened. You still get to have your say, but you don't have to go through the trauma of being cross-examined by a barrister on a mission to get his client off. I wish that I had known about someone like Michelle who could have walked us through and prepared us for what that court process was like, for what it's like to be harangued by a barrister, to have everything that you've said and done called into question, to doubt yourself and doubt your memory because you've got someone full on badgering you with questions and questioning your answers. And it really, if you could go into that spot from an empowered position where you knew what was going to happen and how you might react, with some counseling and some education from people, particularly like Michelle, who's actually done it, that would have been so helpful for us. And just knowing, okay, so your daughter's going to go on the stand. You're not going to be able to be with her. She is going to be upset when she comes off the stand, and then you'll have to go straight back on the stand yourself. This is what it's going to be like in there, those sorts of things. And how to
Well,
temper your emotions.
the whole idea is that with the work that I do is that those aren't the driving force. You don't. The
Yeah.
emotions are aside.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I've spoken a little bit about little Abs, dear Abs,
Yes. Yes.
who reached out to me simply because she could not get the police to listen. So she couldn't even get them to charge this
Mm-hmm.
person
Yeah.
because we don't know where he is. And she would find out where he was and ring them, and they would take no action.
Yes.
And this actually caused more trauma in her life. And she was
Yeah.
very young 20s. And
Yeah.
so we did this work together so that we could bridge the gap that we've talked about, so that she could
Yes.
actually speak in a way that they could hear her. And then they took that action. And then they actually arrested him. And because of her
Yeah.
ability to be able to communicate that bridge back, they actually worked really hard, and he didn't get bail, and he had to wait in jail. And so when she went to court, she
Yes.
said to me after, she said, it was the most empowered thing I've ever experienced in my life. That was incredible,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
You can't describe it until it's something you experience. And that's the thing, is that she was able to sit and tell her story in a way
Mm-hmm.
that people could hear it and receive
Yes.
it, and
Yes.
not be confronted by the trauma that you're experiencing, because we've
Yeah.
resolved those things. We can't take that rape away. However, we can actually give you a dialogue and a way of functioning where There
Yes.
is no emotional turmoil that's going to destroy you, that they can use against you.
Yeah.
When you're able
And
to
they
sit
do.
and talk, and they try to, because you got to think
They
about
do.
it. It's like you've got to be tested. But
Mm,
some defense attorneys get paid big bucks, right?
they
So
do.
they want to win.
Yes.
And others do their job because they believe that evidence must be tested, and that is correct. It
Mm.
must be. I've had a lot of people say to me, "Oh, really? He pled guilty? Why did he do that? Why would someone
Because
do
he's
that?"
guilty.
And I say, well, it's because he couldn't get away with it. And they're like,
Mm,
"Oh," I said, "I had so much evidence he couldn't get away with it." Oh,
yeah.
right. The whole process is very difficult, but if you can use the time for you, when you
And there
step
is
into
quite
that
a
witness
substantial
box,
time.
yep, when you step into that box, you will own it. It will be yours, and so will everything that happens. There is a moment in time where the focus transfers from that person's rights to you as a witness and what you have to say.
Yeah.
And once the question leaves the mouth of the defense attorney, it is now your
Mm-hmm.
floor.
To
It is now
respond.
your time. And how
Mm,
you use that time will determine
yeah.
how you will walk away. You can walk away
Mm,
like little abs and be totally and
empowered.
utterly, wow, that I am proud of myself. I said everything I wanted to say. I said it in a way that people heard it. I could do no more than I did. I respected myself, and I presented something in a way that I feel empowered and proud, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to walk away thinking, oh, I shouldn't have cried. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. We're coming back to blame,
Yes.
right? No,
Yes.
no. That is where I've been writing to a couple of people. We have a difficulty in that a lot of people rely on their textbook,
Yes.
right? Now, I've studied their textbook and I can rely on their
Mm,
textbook, but I also know firsthand. And it's about the people that I've spoken with, the people that I've explained this to, they're suddenly
yeah.
seeing something that they've never been told before, or seeing it in a way that they better understand,
Yes. Yeah.
right? So it's not that you don't matter. It's just that there's a process. So use the process.
Yeah.
So
Because
first of all,
Michelle, I have to say, and I've read your book a number of times, and the Abby story was, um, I really wish that at the end of our trial, I had walked outside that courtroom and felt empowered, because I'm telling you, without the skills of someone like Michelle helping you through that process, then when you get that guilty verdict, it's so hollow. There's nothing like, you would think or expect that you would be happy and joyous and all the rest of it, but it's so hollow. And again, if I'd had someone, or we'd had someone like Michelle to empower us through that process, that verdict would have been a sense of empowerment versus an empty, hollow feeling of being destroyed
yeah,
effectively.
I think the thing about
That's
it
the
is to
difference.
have the voice. It's to have the
Yes,
voice, to know that you had that voice and that you represented yourself and that you were
yes,
heard. It's important that you
yes,
feel that you've been heard, that you know,
yeah,
and you can focus in and say, I was heard, right?
yeah.
Now, um,
Because
it's
that's part of
important,
healing, Michelle, isn't it? That's
yeah,
very
it's
important
important to
part of healing.
recognize and understand that representing yourself in a way that you feel, you know inside yourself that you've done the
Yeah.
best that you can do, and and you can be at peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
But where you get up, where, and you know, you cry on the stand, and little Ab said to me, The only time I cried, and she said, but the whole
Yes.
courtroom was crying with me. And
Yes.
that was really
Yes.
important, that she experienced
Yes.
as it, not because of me, but with
Yes.
me.
The
She
story.
said, was
Yes.
when I was talking about describing the damage that he did to me.
Yeah.
So she was actually able to describe it. It can be very difficult for
Oh,
someone
yes.
who's in an emotional turmoil before they even get to court.
Yeah.
The process, the nerves leading up to it for a
Yes.
member of the survivor family, it can be
Yes.
really, really incredible. And
Yes. Really tough.
really tough on you, tough on your support. And
Yes.
nurturing is great. Okay, it's nice to have some nurturing. Lovely.
Yes.
However, what you really need is some solid ground that you can
Yes.
focus in on, that you can absolutely, you can, this is your space. You own it.
Yes.
You have the solid support.
Yes.
Because, and that's, you're grounded, and that you can actually step up there and take control. Now, I think they got one question in, and then she just kept talking. And she said, me, I don't shut up once I get started. And she said, and I just sat there and I just told my story, and no one interrupted me. No one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they didn't even use the evidence, because the judge was more than satisfied that she had, in her story, in the way in which she had been able to sit and
talk about it
and explain and take people on a journey, because this is what you're doing. You're taking people on a journey that is your story. However, if you can't look at your story, if your story traumatizes you, how can you share it in a way that other people can hear, can feel, can see, and understand, and make sense? And this is what's important. And this is where we struggle in a courtroom, right?
Yes.
So I think it's important that you make a decision. Everyone makes a decision.
Yeah.
If this happens to me, I'm going to make sure I get the medical attention, but I also get the forensics. And then I can make a decision about what I want to do. It's all there waiting for me to decide. Make a decision when you're ready to make a decision. Okay?
Yeah.
And then when you've made your decision, great. You want to really reclaim yourself. And I actually said under oath, and I'm going to share it with you because I think it's really important.
Yes, please.
Right. So the defense said to me, oh, you're only here because you hate him. You hate him. That's why you're doing this, because you want to hurt him. And I said to him, I said, I hate what he did. I'm angry about what he did to me.
Yes.
Because he raped me.
Yeah.
And I said, I wish he hadn't done that. I didn't want him to do that, and I have to live with that. But he is not my priority. I'm not interested in him. I am not here for him. In this whole process, the only time that I've mattered, that I am heard, that I have any value at all, is my voice right here, right now. And I'm here right now to say that I matter, that was rape, and that this is for me to empower me, to help me to heal.
Yeah.
Now, I hope people understand this. I did not come from a position of revenge or anger.
No.
I was not coming from that. Yes, I was angry of what he did. I wish he'd never done it.
Yes.
Right? However, I'm not sitting on that seat talking in that court to punish him. I'm there for me. And there was nothing that this top QC in Australia flew from across the country for free. to make sure
Yes.
that I never set that legal precedent. Now, yeah, he was unable to use the usual tactics because I had a different mindset.
Ah, okay.
Right. And so usually he would get someone crying and falling apart. But I was very clear.
Yes.
I'm not here for him.
Yep.
He's the problem of society. I stepped up and I've
Absolutely.
held him accountable. Now he's your problem. He's not anything to do with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm now responsible for me, and that's what I'm doing right now. But I'm also having a voice. I'm actually having my turn to be considered.
Mm.
Right now,
It's very important.
It
It's
is
very
very
important for you to have a voice. And something
That's
else
right.
that I've learnt from having these wonderful, deep conversations with Michelle is, in our particular case, had I known certain things, I would have actually pushed for different charges than were laid in our case, because there would have been a very different outcome. So the district prosecutor wanted to try new laws in Queensland. I wish I'd said no. I want him charged in this way on these counts versus trying some new law, because and had I thought that I was empowered enough to say that, I would have absolutely
And you thought you
had
had
that
a choice.
conversation.
Yeah.
Had I thought
When
I had choice. Yes.
Yeah. When I was talking with my DPP, which is my solicitor for the Department of Public Prosecutions, who try
Yeah.
criminal cases on behalf of the state here. So when
They
I say
do.
DPP solicitor, you know who I mean.
Yes.
You know, he would say things to me, and I would say, "How dare you say that to me?
Yeah.
Don't you say that to me?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And he said, "Oh," I said, "No, that's not okay for you to say this to me or
Say
that to
that
me."
to me.
And he said
Yes.
to me, "Oh, you know, try not to get too upset on you know, in court." And I'm like, "Excuse me, don't
Ooh,
say that to me. I was raped. I can be any way I want. If I'm feeling upset,
absolutely.
I'm upset. That is the truth, and I will be swearing to tell the truth, and therefore I will tell the truth. And
Yeah.
if you're sitting there helping representing the people of this country or the state, you know, then you you have to respect that
Absolutely.
this is how I feel. And so does everybody
Yeah.
else in there. I didn't go
Yeah.
on a picnic and I'm there to talk about a picnic, right?
Yeah.
So I did actually challenge things that I didn't think were acceptable.
Well
And
done.
you know, but then you see, I had a different mindset. I wasn't
Yeah.
mean to him, and he was a lovely man,
No,
and we
no.
actually
Yes.
had a good relationship. And at the end, you know, he acknowledged that he'd learned a lot working with me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, but it
Yes.
made a difference. But I've also learned so much more going
Yeah.
through that process and helping other people who are about to go through
Yeah.
that process that I've met at various places, and I've sat them down and I've talked them through some things, and we've done some.
Yeah.
But I guess it's band-aid work. The work that I do can be done very quickly in terms of
Yes.
this sort of the coaching or the counselling or the
Yes.
pathway in which
Yes.
I used. It can be done very quickly. So I've done this with people, and you know what? It's taken a lot of fear away,
Yes.
because
It
all of a
does.
sudden they realize that no one's going to do anything to them.
No.
Right? Because you worry, what are they going to do to me? What are they going to say to me? What about this? What about that? Oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And you know, the conversion from charge to prosecution of a successful verdict
Yes.
is horrendous in this country. It's absolutely horrendous for two reasons.
Absolutely. It's shocking.
Yep. For reason number one, a lot of people withdraw.
They
They
do.
don't make it to court because
Because it's too hard.
because it's too hard.
Tough.
And yet it's not too hard with the right mindset.
If you
And
have
that is
some help.
reason number two.
Yes.
Is because the people who are in positions of authority within this domain don't actually understand us.
Correct.
We understand us, but they don't. And it's great to have your counsellor there, a nice nurturing support.
Yes. Yes.
However, there's only one person on that stand.
And that's you.
That's us. And when we sit there, we're representing us. And it doesn't matter what happens, if we can do that, if you can actually walk away and say, I said everything that I wanted to say.
Yes.
I was heard. I controlled that space and people listened to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter after that what that verdict's going to be. I remember Mr. Dare said to me, what do you want his sentence to be? What do you hope he gets if you win?
Yeah.
And I said to him, well, firstly, it's not, I don't win anything. There's no prize money. There's no rat, it's not like a rat. And I said, I don't win anything. I go home and I'm the same person I was when I got up in the morning. And I said, and secondly, I absolutely have no responsibility whatsoever for what he gets, because no sentence would be right.
That's right.
Because the minute he comes out of jail, if he ends up there, he will be raping someone. And so I said to him, I'm not interested in him. I'm not interested in what he gets. I'm not interested in what he doesn't get. And I don't see that I will win or lose. I am doing this to take control back from me. And to say, you did something, you shouldn't have done it. It's not okay. And I'm here to
tell you it's not okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And I did it in such a way. It was 2.5. It was a precedent case, so it was pretty full on.
Yes.
And I had to relive all of the rapes in detail, including that one over and over again. But the thing was,
Michelle, sorry, I just that over and over and over again. If you have some counselling and insight into that over and over and over again process, where they will ask you your story again and again and again and again and again, and if you have some help preparing you for that process as well, that's equally helpful. And you coach people about that too, don't you, Michelle?
Well, what I do is I actually resolve the emotion, and I give them they give themselves. There's a process where you can take resources, reshape your life, change your map of the world, change how you think, broaden your perspective, give you context, allow you to grieve and accept and acknowledge, and then to reclaim yourself and say, okay, who am I going to be? And put yourself back together, right? So when you have to relive something over and over again, it's not as emotionally traumatic. It's traumatic. I'm not saying it's not. I'm really not. However, what they used
to have that tug on you, doesn't it? It ceases to have power over you. Yes, it's
devastation. The triggers. He couldn't trigger me.
Yeah.
And I was able to
powerful thing.
Actually explain the emotions that I felt and how they actually impacted on me and how that affected my life. Because I was actually, my precedent was around the level of suffering that we victims of sexual assault experience, and setting a legal level. Right. So it was all about how I felt, and it was all about how that impacted on my life. And it was and how that would be a life sentence, and that, because we have a choice, as I've always said. We can be destroyed or we can become empowered. However, I've either said we
The
can
life
be a
sentence is
survivor
still the same.
or an empowered survivor, right? We
That's
can
right.
just live happier, but it's never going to go away.
No, and we
And you have
don't
to
talk
build a new
about this
person.
enough.
No, we
We don't
can't.
talk
So
about this enough.
we have to make not a new you, but we have to find an authentic you. We have to
Yeah.
we have to get you back, right?
Yes.
As to the best that we get you back. There will be things that will be different because you now have a different understanding of life. And
Yes.
so you have the resources and things to be able to say, having a coffee, oh yeah, I was raped. I can say that. I
Yes.
can sit here and talk to you, which I have done for the
You
last 6
can.
weeks. And I can share
Yes.
everything that I made a life out of studying.
Yeah.
I've never met an academic who's actually interviewed rapists in their natural hunting ground while they're hunting.
Yeah, when I read that, Michelle, I'm like, wow, that takes lots of guts to do that, but I'm really glad you did because in reading that, it's a powerful resource to help you understand more about these crimes. Is
And
that why you did it?
at the time, I was trying to make sense of it.
Okay.
And I remember the first time I ever actually realized that I was looking at someone who
Yes.
was actually hunting. And I
Yeah.
was actually thinking, I just remembered it the other day. I was started thinking about it the other day, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and it was almost like it was at that time when it was like I could smell him. There was this sort
Yeah.
of intuitive sense that that's what he
Yep.
was. I just spent that evening, we were at a pub, listening, there was a band and there was lots of people. I just
Yeah.
watched him. And then I listened out for who he was and found out more and listened out again, asked a few questions, and sure enough, oh yeah, someone said rah, 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 someone said rah, 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 right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so I remember that first time that I actually became aware of that.
Mm.
It was quite
Because you're
electric.
not aware until you've been through it, are you? The thing that comes out of all of the trauma of an assault is a sixth sense, a seventh sense. You can be walking down the street and you'll just know. You just know that person walking there has evil intent, and you know what their evil intent is. It's like a
Some
superpower.
of them are really good. Some of them,
Yeah,
it's just, it's just one of those things.
it
Like
strikes you, doesn't it? Yeah.
with the handyman, there were buttons that he
Yes.
pushed and I pulled back, but then it was like, oh, okay, so okay. But I had things in place with my children,
You
and
did.
I didn't teach them about sex. No, I taught them about bad
What
people.
was
That's how
okay and what wasn't.
yeah, and that made different, and we've talked about that difference. Yeah. So what was interesting, I've been putting some stuff up on LinkedIn, and I've got
Mm.
put something up just recently about the group that I was in
Yes.
for the last time I was sexually assaulted, and there was about 35 women in that room.
Yes.
Every single one of those women wanted justice for
Yes.
themselves. They wanted a voice. Many
Mhm.
of them were terrified and had
Yes.
never told and probably never have told their families.
Yes.
Others,
Yeah.
others wanted it, but were scared because of the stories that they'd heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two of us went to court. One of them I talk about in this book
Yeah.
about what the judge did, which meant she never
Mm.
got a day in court.
Yeah.
And I got my day in court. Now, the difference between this beautiful person and myself really was that I was able to build the bridge because I had a different mindset. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, the judge could not deal with her trauma.
Yeah.
She shouldn't have had a
Yeah.
right to interfere, and she is a member of a society. So guess what? You know, you have to deal with it because
Yeah.
we all have to deal with it, right? She
Yeah.
didn't. She made life easy on herself. Didn't allow that to proceed.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
made it to court, and I'm one of 4% of people, perhaps.
I
I
was just
can't
going
remember.
to say,
Very minimal
statistically,
amount of
tiny amount.
family, our survivor family. If you're a
Yeah.
survivor out,
Actually go to court.
we're not a majority. We're not even a 50-50 representation.
No.
In
No.
that last article I posted, I said if people really came forward and reported and said, I want to go to court, it would horrify people to understand how bad it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely, scary.
Michelle,
So
even just talking to my daughter's group of 25, 30-year-olds, the number of times those girls have talked about inappropriate touching, drunken forays, drugged drink spiking, uh, just the manner of bad behavior. None of those things have gone anywhere near a court, which gives you some indication of how massive this problem is around women and assault. And
now
and that's not to say that it doesn't happen to men, but I'm talking about the majority of the crimes are
it's
against women.
it is. So, like in the book, I deconstruct 2 sexual
You do.
assaults.
Yeah.
And those people that very bravely stepped up publicly to put their story out there,
Yeah.
one on video, one in a newspaper, both of them
Yeah.
said, I wasn't raped. They questioned, was I raped or not?
Yeah.
And they think they
When
were.
very clearly they were.
When
Very clearly they
extremely
were.
clearly, and I explain that when I deconstruct it. I
Yes, you
explain
do.
how that happened to create that doubt. Part of that is the skill set of predators. The other part of that
Yes.
is lack of is pure
Society.
ignorance. We don't
Yes.
teach it to our children because we don't know ourselves. Well, those of us who don't know. A lot of people who've been raped or sexually assaulted, if they
Yes.
don't deal with it and own it, and unfortunately there is only a few of the majority try to bury it.
Don't speak publicly or talk or ever talk about it.
And
Ever.
that's okay. I understand. I do understand because throughout my life I've talked about it and people have resented me for it, right? So I do
Yes. Same.
understand. However,
Yeah.
it is a problem and it is part of life. It's like
Yeah.
whether or not you get braces. It's like losing your
Yeah.
teeth. It's like
Yeah.
everything else. It's a
Yeah.
part of life.
It's going to happen,
And
but
we
we
need
could.
to own it, to control it, and to be able to better deal with it. If we don't look at it.
Correct.
Someone said to me, that's not the sort of thing that I talk about. And
Yeah.
I want to share something with you here. And I think that it will be a big pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine 4 chairs.
Yeah.
Chairs in an empty room. I don't know if I've done this before. Sitting on one chair is our survivor family. Everyone
Yes.
that's sexually assaulted. The chair next to them is everyone who is speaking up, who has tried to make changes, who has tried to be heard, who has in some way been an advocate. Whether I'm an advocate or just been there for people in their community and said,
Yes.
hey, I was raped, I understand, and being supportive. Then there's those people who they don't talk about that sort of thing. That's not the sort of thing they would read or that they would know about.
Don't speak up. Don't say anything. Stay in a corner. Be quiet.
Then there's the sexual predators.
Yeah.
So I want you to just imagine a line. I want you to draw the line down between the advocate chair and the people who
Yes.
don't, who are basically, you know,
Silent.
not going to listen to that. I'm going to look away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now take the survivor family and move their chair over here.
Yeah.
Because even though we have too much of a burden, we have a knowledge.
Mm.
And in a way, by not sharing that, we're kind of supporting the rapist.
Absolutely.
Right?
You're allowing them to get away with it.
Right. Now, for me, having been in this chair, I sit in this first chair. You know,
Yes.
I look back and I say, I was always speaking up, and I've always tried to work with people.
Yes.
Right. But perhaps if I'd written the book sooner, there'd be people that maybe would still be here, or maybe wouldn't
Yeah.
be a part of our family. Right.
Yes.
So we all have a choice. The minute we become more aware, and that's why I'm out here talking to people.
Yes.
The minute we do, we must realize that we now have the power to protect ourselves and our loved ones, and to
Yeah.
be able to step up and change sexual assault culture from
Absolutely.
gee, to let's have a chat about this. It
Yes.
really needs to be time now that we say this is enough. When we think about our children and their children, we have to say,
Yes.
at what point do we want things to be different?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing is that we are very isolated, and yet we are a huge family. Survivors of sexual
Huge.
assault are a huge family.
They
And
are.
unfortunately, a lot of people who are sexually assaulted as children end up in domestic violence situations.
Yes.
I shared a story with you with someone who was about to marry a sexual predator who was a
Yep.
pedophile.
Yep.
And she ended up in a domestic violence situation for her next
Yes.
relationship. The trauma that we experience, whether it's directly or indirectly around the subject, is so extreme
Yeah.
that it is outside of our ability to be aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's important so that we have it as part of our ability as a society to be aware of it, and to therefore change the way things are at the moment. It is important that we start talking. And that's why
Absolutely.
space is important. And that's why I wrote this. It's a safe
Yeah.
space for anyone and
Yeah.
everyone. And I included court at the end because it's kind of like, well, not the very end, but near the end, because it is
Indian.
really where we can begin to make a huge change. Because it doesn't matter how much evidence you have or how many people believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Truth is the truth. It matters that
Yes.
you're honest.
Yes. Yeah.
I will always be there for anyone who wants to step up and
Yeah.
say, hey, I want to be heard. This was not
Yeah.
okay. And I want to step up for me.
Yeah.
And I can work with those.
Michelle,
However,
in our last
sorry, Toni.
in our last 4 minutes, I really want to focus on
4 minutes.
angel insight coaching, which yes, last 4 minutes. I want to focus on angel insight coaching because that's what you're passionate about now, is helping victims of assault, whatever that looks like, to take back their lives and be empowered. So I'd really like you to quickly talk about some of the ways that you use angel insight to help the people that work with you.
Okay, so like I said before, we don't always, have a, okay, here's this plan. You can be this,
Yes.
or this, right? So if you were to come to
Yours is
me and say,
individualized.
I've been sexually assaulted and I'm struggling. Okay, great. So where do we want to go from here? So I
Yeah.
sit down with people, we have a free chat, and we
Yeah.
look at what is most difficult in your life right now.
Yeah.
And then we look at where you want to be in the future, and we make a plan, right? And we can just keep we can say, okay, I just want to stop this and this. Yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And we can do that. And then you might say, oh, we will start to set some goals once you know what they are,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Now some people say to me, oh, yeah, I want to keep going. And I'm like, yep, okay. We can look at every single aspect of your life, or we can just focus on triggers. If we start out
Yes.
focusing on the things that are right now causing you a problem, because what we need to understand here is that the way in which we work is that we might have desires, or we want to try something, we want to do something. And we end up having difficulties and struggles because
Yes.
we need to empty out our filing cabinet, right? And we need to have a different lot of
Mm.
decisions and a different way of doing things. So we keep having these things happen until we deal with them. Now we might be able to
Yeah.
bury them deep in that filing cabinet, but at some point they're going to come back, right?
Yeah.
They are going to
They
hold
can't
you
stay
back.
buried.
No, but they're
Mm.
also going to hold you back and prevent you from
Yeah.
achieving the things you want. So you're always at
Yeah.
war with yourself. You're not at peace
Yeah.
with yourself, right? So we look at what is it that you want right now, and as we move forward, what is it you want? So someone might work with me for
Yeah.
12 weeks. Someone might work with me for 6 months, right? It
Mm.
depends on
It's very
where we are.
individual.
That's right. And we might start off every week and then move
Mm.
to fortnightly, because there is a time
Yeah.
where people don't need me anymore
Yeah.
because they've got it. They've got it, right? And
And
they'll
that's
come.
your aim, Michelle.
That is my
Michelle's aim is always to have an outcome. She doesn't want you to keep coming back.
back.
She wants you to get on with your best life.
I want you to be like little abs. I want you
Yeah.
to reclaim your life, reclaim
Mm.
yourself, to be able to set boundaries, to be respected,
Yes.
to
Yes.
have a life where you feel that you can fit into it, and to not be
Yeah.
running from yourself
Yeah.
all the time,
Not be triggered.
and not be afraid all the time.
Yeah.
Having
Yeah.
resources, yeah, having peace,
Yeah.
right? And not beating yourself up all the time over every single thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's what we do. We look at
Michelle, I think that that is just the most beautiful spot to stop for today's interview. I encourage you, if you're listening to the show tonight or today and you're struggling with an assault, a sexual assault, and you just want some help, I really encourage you to reach out to Michelle. She's on all socials. Her company is called Angel Insight Coaching, and I can tell you that this girl will help you because she walks and has walked and she talks the talk. So she's been there, done that. She's got an intimate knowledge and understanding of these crimes, what happens to you in your mind, and she can help you get to the other side. So that's Angel Insight Coaching. For those of you that missed that, if you're driving whilst you're listening to this, jump on a radiotony.com, look under my co-host and you'll find all of Michelle's information. Michelle, thank you so much for being such an open, wonderful person in talking about sexual insight. Congratulations on your best-selling book, Insight. And I look forward to working with you again in the future and having further discussions around this incredibly important subject. That, my friends, is our lot for this evening. Michelle, thank you so much for being on this show today. People, get out and buy a copy of Michelle's book, Insight. It has wonderful insights. They're really good. It's so easy to read and understand. It's a resource book. If you're struggling, grab the book and then reach out to Michelle because she will be able to help you. All right, guys, that's our lot for this week. Michelle, once again, what a divine pleasure to have you on the show and to do this series of shows with you. I look forward to catching up with everyone in our show later this week, but that's our lot for now. Thank you so much, Michelle. Bye for now. I'm your host, Toni Lontis.